Most people never see a celebrity death certificate, but they're public, and when you read them closely, you start asking new questions. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are the facts everyone skipped while chasing the headlines. Fatty Arbuckles' quiet cardiac collapse. He was once the highest-paid actor in Hollywood. By 1921, that was over. 3 manslaughter trials destroyed his career. Though he was cleared of all charges, his name never recovered. He kept working behind the scenes, but the damage was done. 10 years later, he died in his sleep at 46. The death certificate listed myocardial infarction, a heart attack, but deeper reports show his heart had been struggling for years. Arbuckle was a heavy drinker, not just socially. During Prohibition, he still found bootleg liquor, and it took a toll. Friends said he'd gained weight again and was complaining of chest pain in the weeks before he died. He was in New York when it happened. The date was the 29th of June, 1933. The day before, Warner Brothers had just signed him to a new contract. For the first time in years, he was going to star in front of the camera again. He celebrated that night with friends, said he felt great, went to bed, never woke up. Doctors who examined him found that the heart's left artery had ruptured. His blood pressure was dangerously high. The coroner noted that Arbuckle's esophagus also showed signs of long-term strain, likely from chronic acid reflux or vomiting, both known symptoms tied to years of alcohol abuse and stress. The stomach lining was inflamed. The press treated it as a comeback story cut short, but Arbuckle's death certificate showed this was a slow burn, the kind that builds quietly, unnoticed, until it wins. His wife, Addie, told reporters he was finally at peace. He died happy, she said. There was no funeral spectacle. He was cremated at Forest Lawn with only a small group in attendance. His ashes weren't interred until much later. Peg Antwistles' delayed impact discovery. She had 1 film credit, but her name became forever tied to the Hollywood sign. On the 18th of September, 1932, a hiker found her body below the H, along with her purse, shoes, and a note. The story was front-page news. A rising actress, dead at 24. But the coroner's report revealed something most people didn't know. Antwistle didn't die instantly from the fall. Her death certificate, filed by the L.A. County coroner, listed multiple fractures of the pelvis, spine, and skull. But in the notes, the examiner described signs of internal trauma inconsistent with a clean break. Her lungs had filled with fluid, and there was bruising that suggested her heart continued beating after impact. It meant she likely survived for several minutes, possibly even longer, after landing in the brush below the letter. There were also signs of movement. One shoe had been kicked off a short distance from her body. Her handbag was still clasped shut. A trail of flattened grass, stretching about 10 feet, was found beside her. No dragging, no blood trail, just evidence that she might have shifted or rolled before losing consciousness. The note, found inside her purse, was short. "I'm afraid I'm a coward. I'm sorry for everything." But the real shock came days later. Her uncle, who had raised her, received a letter from RKO Pictures. Peg had just been offered a lead role in a new film. It had been mailed before she died. Her death certificate was filed under her full name, Millicent Lillian Entwistle. Her body was cremated and sent back to Ohio, where her father was buried. Lupe Veles' report disputed press accounts. She was one of the first Mexican stars in Hollywood. She was bold, outspoken, and a comedy icon in the 1930s. But by the mid-1940s, her career had cooled. On the 13th of December, 1944, she was found dead in her Beverly Hills home. Newspapers said she took sleeping pills and died peacefully in bed, but the coroner's findings told a different story. Her official death certificate listed the cause as seconal poisoning, but she wasn't in bed. She was found face down near the toilet in her bathroom. Her maid discovered her the next morning with the room in disarray. That detail was left out of early reports to preserve her image. The autopsy confirmed a large amount of seconal in her bloodstream, enough to be fatal. But there was another detail, signs of vomiting. Her lungs showed fluid consistent with inhalation of stomach contents. The coroner noted that she had likely become sick shortly after taking the pills and collapsed while trying to reach the bathroom. There was also a strong scent of perfume and makeup freshly applied. Her hair had been carefully styled. She had written a note addressed to her lover Harold Ramond saying she was too sad to go on. The note was signed and dated. What made it worse was the press spin. Gossip columnists painted a romantic, almost glamorous version of events. Some stories claimed she had planned the entire thing for dramatic effect. Others invented myths, like her being found on satin sheets surrounded by candles. None of that was true. The coroner's report cut through the noise. She had acted alone, but it hadn't gone as planned. The report even noted the bruises on her shins and knees, likely from hitting the tile floor during the collapse. That part never made it to print. She was 36. Her final scene wasn't scripted, and her death certificate recorded what Hollywood wouldn't say. She died trying to make it look perfect. It wasn't. Albert Decker's complex scene ruled accidental. He was a seasoned actor, working in film, stage, and politics. Known for villain roles in the 1940s and 50s, he stepped back from acting later in life. On May 5, 1968, he was found dead in his Hollywood Hills home. The scene was so bizarre, police suspected foul play, but the death certificate told a different story. He was discovered by his fiancée, who forced open the bathroom door after not hearing from him for several days. He was found in the tub, unclothed, with accessories that suggested deliberate staging. A cord was secured to the shower rod, and his wrists and ankles had light bindings. He was wearing sunglasses, and a cloth had been placed over his mouth. Investigators also noted markings on his body, written in red lipstick, consisting of scattered phrases and symbols. Despite how it looked, the Los Angeles County coroner found no signs of a struggle, no bruises that would suggest restraint, no evidence anyone else had been in the apartment. The autopsy revealed death by asphyxiation due to partial hanging. It was ruled accidental. Toxicology came back clean. No alcohol, no drugs. The knot was tied in a way that allowed him to slip in and out of it himself. Investigators determined he had likely lost consciousness while experimenting with pressure on the neck, an activity not uncommon, though rarely discussed. Decker's belongings were untouched. Cash, jewelry, and personal effects remained in plain sight. His fiancée told police he had done this kind of thing before, though never to this extent. She hadn't thought much of it until he stopped returning her calls. Decker's body was cremated, and no public service was held. His name faded from headlines quickly, but for years, his death was used as tabloid fodder. Dorothy Dandridge's fractured foot overlooked. She broke barriers. She was the first black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, but Hollywood didn't give her much after that. By the 1960s, roles had dried up, and money was tight. On the 8th of September, 1965, she was found dead in her apartment in West Hollywood. She was 42. The death certificate listed acute drug intoxication due to an overdose of Twinyl, a sedative. It had been prescribed. Early reports called it accidental. Some quietly speculated it was intentional, but the autopsy raised quiet questions. For one, there was no note, no high alcohol level. Her doctor had prescribed the drug for anxiety and insomnia, but she hadn't taken a massive amount, just enough to affect her central nervous system. The medical examiner noted a likely interaction with her existing health conditions. Her liver showed signs of long-term strain. The overlooked detail: her right foot was broken, a fresh fracture, no cast. The coroner's notes described it as a recent traumatic injury. The bruising suggested it happened within 48 hours of death. She had canceled a performance in Seattle just days before, claiming illness. Friends said she'd been limping. The apartment was in order. Her manager discovered her body on the bathroom floor after she missed a scheduled phone call. She was wearing a robe. The scene was clean, quiet. Her death was ruled accidental, but the foot injury stayed a loose end. It was logged in the final report, but left out of most press coverage. Just one more detail that didn't fit the headlines. Dandridge was cremated and interred at Forest Lawn. Inger Stevenss's carpet scratch mark. She was a rising star in the 1960s. Known for her work in The Farmer's Daughter and several dramatic films, she had just started making a comeback. On the 30th of April, 1970, she collapsed in the kitchen of her Hollywood Hills home. Her roommate found her early that morning. She was rushed to the hospital but pronounced dead shortly after arrival. She was 35. The official cause of death was listed on the certificate as acute barbiturate poisoning. The coroner ruled it an accidental overdose, but the full report hinted that the end wasn't immediate. Toxicology confirmed a lethal level of barbiturates in her blood. Not enough for a quick collapse, though. Based on absorption rates, the examiner estimated she had been conscious for some time after taking the pills. Her stomach showed signs of digestion, and there was discoloration on her fingers and knees, suggesting she had crawled after losing balance. The most chilling detail was found in the living room carpet. The coroner's notes described linear fiber pulls near the body, tiny thread marks consistent with dragging or clutching. Her nails were worn. It looked like she had tried to pull herself across the floor, possibly for help, possibly toward the phone. There were no signs of trauma, forced entry, or violence. Her roommate told police she hadn't seemed depressed and had been planning a trip for the following week. They had dinner the night before, and nothing seemed unusual. But Stevenss had a history of taking sleeping pills, and combining prescriptions may have tipped the balance. She also kept her private life extremely quiet. It wasn't until after her death that the public learned she had secretly married Ike Jones, a black film producer. At the time, interracial marriages in Hollywood were career-ending. The marriage certificate had been filed in secret in 1961. They'd lived apart to avoid scrutiny. Inger Stevenss was cremated, and no autopsy photos were released. Her death didn't spark a scandal, but the quiet facts in her coroner's report told a different story. One of a woman who didn't fade away peacefully, but tried to fight for just a few more minutes. Sal Mineo's defensive wounds. He was a teen idol in the 1950s. He earned an Oscar nomination for Rebel Without a Cause and had a promising future. By the mid-1970s, he was rebuilding his career, taking on stage roles, and living quietly in West Hollywood. On the 12th of February, 1976, he was attacked outside his apartment after rehearsal. He was 37. The death certificate listed stab wound to the chest. He died within minutes, but the autopsy revealed more than just a fatal injury. Mineo had several cuts on his hands and forearms. The coroner marked them as defensive wounds. He had fought back. The attack happened fast. Witnesses heard shouting and found him collapsed in the carport, bleeding heavily. He had one major wound to the heart, but it was the smaller cuts that told the story. The report noted that the fatal injury punctured the aorta, causing rapid internal bleeding. He was conscious for a short time, not long enough for help to arrive. Nothing was stolen. His wallet and watch were still on him. That led to early speculation that it might have been a targeted attack, but within a year, police arrested a man named Lionel Ray Williams, a local with a string of robberies in the area. He denied involvement. Years later, he was convicted based on witness testimony, though no weapon was ever found. Mineo's body showed no signs of drug or alcohol use. He had spent the evening running lines at a local theater, clean clothes, no signs of a struggle in his apartment, just a quick, brutal encounter steps from his door. He was buried at Gate of Heaven Cemetery in New York. His mother requested privacy, and the case faded from national headlines. But the death certificate recorded what mattered most: a single fatal wound, multiple attempts to defend himself, and a life cut short not by scandal, but by a random, senseless act of violence. Charles Boyer's coordinated overdose. He had one of the smoothest voices in Hollywood. Known for Gaslight and a string of romantic dramas, he built a long, steady career. But behind the scenes, he was devoted to his wife, actress Pat Patterson. When she died of cancer in August 1978, Boyer didn't wait long to follow her. He was 78. On the 26th of August, 2 days after his wife's passing, Boyer died in Phoenix, Arizona. The death certificate listed intentional overdose of Seconal. The coroner classified it as intentional, but it wasn't impulsive. The report pointed to careful preparation. There were 4 types of barbiturates in his system. All were legally prescribed. None were taken in excess individually, but together they slowed his heart to a stop. The toxicologist noted the combination had been taken in staggered doses over several hours. A will had been signed the day before. Bank accounts were in order. A note was left, short and direct. It stated his grief and his desire to be with her. There was no mention of pain, illness, or confusion, no sign of outside influence. It was a quiet decision from a man who had lost the person he built his life around. He was found in bed at a friend's home. His son and close friends were notified after the police confirmed the scene. Boyer had told no one in advance. His final hours were spent alone. The coroner's report showed no evidence of long-term substance misuse. His liver, kidneys, and heart were in good condition for his age. That fact confirmed the intent. He wasn't failing. He simply didn't want to live without her. The funeral was private. His ashes were interred next to his wife in Dallas. The news reached headlines briefly, mostly overseas. In France, he was mourned as a national treasure. In Hollywood, the story was more subdued. Dana Plato's delay in help. She became famous overnight playing Kimberly Drummond on Different Strokes, but fame didn't last. By the late 1990s, she was living in an RV with her fiancé, doing radio appearances and trying to revive her image. On May 8, 1999, one day after a live interview defending her sobriety, she was found dead in her motorhome in Moore, Oklahoma. She was 34. The death certificate listed fatal overdose of Lortab and Soma. Both were legally prescribed, Lortab for pain, Soma as a muscle relaxant. The medical examiner ruled it accidental, but the coroner's report pointed out that the dose of each medication was within the prescribed limit. It was the combination that caused her breathing to slow and eventually stop. She died sometime in the afternoon. Her fiancé told investigators she had gone to lie down and didn't wake up. He waited several hours before calling emergency services. The delay was noted in the police report, but no charges were filed. There was no sign of struggle, trauma, or illegal substances. Toxicology results came back clean aside from the 2 medications. No alcohol, no street drugs. Her liver showed early signs of damage, likely from years of substance use, but not severe enough to be fatal on its own. The medical examiner noted the absence of food in her stomach, which may have caused the pills to hit harder and faster. She had just spoken publicly about trying to get better. The day before, she appeared upbeat, but according to the report, she hadn't taken the medications under supervision. No pill count was done. No one checked on her for hours. Her body was cremated. No autopsy photos were released. Her son, Tyler, was 14 at the time. Years later, he would die on the same day, May 8. David Carradine's cause remains unclear. He made his name in the 1970s as the star of Kung Fu and later appeared in Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill films. He had a long, unpredictable career and an even stranger ending. On the 4th of June, 2009, Carradine was found dead in a Bangkok hotel room. He was 72. Initial reports called it intentional. That changed quickly. Thai authorities released the death certificate stating asphyxiation as the cause, but they didn't classify it as self-harm. The exact circumstances were labeled unusual, with no final ruling made at the time. The position of the body and the items found in the closet led to widespread speculation. Police said there were no signs of forced entry. Security footage showed no one entering or leaving his room, but investigators found physical evidence that suggested Carradine may have died from a risky form of accidental self-asphyxiation. The coroner in Thailand performed a full autopsy. Later, Carradine's family requested an independent pathologist in the U.S. to conduct a second review. That Dr. Michael Baden confirmed there was no sign of trauma or struggle, but the positioning and physical evidence pointed to an accident involving restricted airflow. The family pushed for further investigation. Carradine's ex-wives and children released statements asking for privacy but expressed doubt about the circumstances. Meanwhile, Thai police closed the case with no charges filed. The U.S. State Department reviewed the case and found no reason to intervene. The final U.S. death certificate repeated the cause as accidental asphyxiation. The exact method was not listed, in line with privacy standards. His remains were returned to Los Angeles and cremated. A quiet ceremony was held with family and a few close friends. Carradine's death made headlines for all the wrong reasons, but the official documents stayed neutral. No sensational claims, no conclusion beyond the physical facts, asphyxiation, no substances, no foul play, just a strange, solitary end to a career full of unpredictable turns. His death certificate didn't explain the why. It only recorded what could be proved. And for a man who built his legacy playing mystery-driven roles, that ending almost fit. How does an actress walk away from 2 Oscar nominations, a Spielberg classic, and one of the most beloved Christmas movies of all time, without a single goodbye? Melinda Dylan did it, and Hollywood still isn't over it. A break from the norm. Melinda Dylan never followed convention. Born in Hope, Arkansas, on October 13, 1939, she spent her early years moving frequently due to her stepfather's military career. The constant uprooting made stability a foreign concept, but it also made her adaptable, a trait that would later define her acting career. Before Hollywood even knew her name, she was just another young woman trying to make a living in Chicago. She worked as a coat check girl at the legendary Second City Improv Theater until one night when fate intervened. A performer was unable to go on, and Dylan, who had spent months watching from the sidelines, was suddenly on stage. Improv wasn't her calling, but the experience pushed her toward acting. That bold leap led her to Broadway. In 1962, she landed a role in Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, a brutal psychological drama that would become one of the most celebrated plays of the 20th century. She played Honey, the fragile, naive young woman caught in the crossfire of a dysfunctional marriage. At just 23, she was starring opposite acting heavyweights like Uta Hagen, Arthur Hill, and George Grizzard. The role earned her a Tony nomination for Best Featured Actress in a Play. For most young actors, this would be the moment they cemented their careers, but Dylan shocked everyone when she abruptly left the production. The pressures of 8 performances a week, the intense emotional demands of the role, and the toxic environment backstage left her drained. She later admitted she suffered a nervous breakdown from the experience. In an industry where walking away from a hit show could be career suicide, she did exactly that, breaking into Hollywood. After stepping away from Broadway, Melinda Dylan didn't rush into Hollywood. She wasn't chasing fame. She took her time, working in television and smaller film projects before landing her first major role. Her on-screen debut came in 1969 with The April Fools, a romantic comedy starring Jack Lemmon and Catherine Deneuve. It was a light-hearted film about an unhappy businessman caught in an unexpected romance, and Dylan played his bubbly, unfiltered wife. It wasn't a huge box office hit, but it gave her a taste of Hollywood filmmaking. Over the next few years, she took on a mix of supporting roles, often playing characters with warmth and quiet depth. She appeared in Slither, 1973, a crime comedy starring James Caan and Sally Kellerman, where she held her own among veteran actors. She had a role in the 1976 disaster comedy The Big Bus, a parody of big-budget disaster films that were dominating theaters at the time. While it didn't make waves, it showed her ability to bring sincerity to even the most absurd premises. Then came Bound for Glory, 1976, the film that truly put her on the map. Directed by Hal Ashby, it told the story of folk singer Woody Guthrie, played by David Carradine. Dylan played his first wife, Mary, in a performance that was both subtle and devastating. She portrayed a woman watching her husband chase a dream while their marriage crumbled under the weight of his ambitions. The role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. At this point, she was no longer just a working actress. She was someone the industry took seriously. An Oscar-worthy kind. In the mid-1970s, Steven Spielberg was preparing his follow-up to Jaws. His next film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, was an ambitious sci-fi epic about ordinary people experiencing unexplained alien phenomena. Casting the right actors was crucial. For the role of Gillian Guyler, a single mother whose young son is abducted by extraterrestrials, Spielberg needed someone who could bring raw emotion to the screen. He didn't want a conventional movie star. He wanted someone who felt real. Melinda Dylan was his choice. The film's most intense scene is the abduction itself. In one of the most haunting moments in sci-fi cinema, Gillian watches in helpless terror as an unseen force takes her son, Barry. The flashing lights, the house shaking, the wind howling, it's chaos. But Dylan's performance is what sells the horror. The rawness in her voice as she screams Barry's name, the sheer panic in her body language, it wasn't just great acting. It was gut-wrenching, and the scene was so effective that audiences believed every second of it. Spielberg later revealed that much of her reaction was genuine. He deliberately kept certain details hidden from Dylan to get a natural response. It worked. Her performance earned her a second Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Few actors get 2 Academy Award nominations in just a few years, but Dylan wasn't typical. The film was a massive success, grossing over $300 million worldwide. It solidified Spielberg as a master filmmaker and cemented Dylan as an actress capable of delivering powerhouse performances. But while the industry recognized her talent, she wasn't interested in chasing the next big role. She wasn't calculating her next move. She was just taking projects that felt right. A masterclass in absence of malice. By the early 1980s, Melinda Dylan had already carved out a reputation as one of Hollywood's most emotionally nuanced actresses. 2 Oscar nominations had solidified her place among the industry's most respected talents, yet she remained an enigma, someone who chose her roles carefully, never chasing the next big moment. And in 1981, she took on one of her most devastating performances yet. Sidney Pollack's Absence of Malice was a sharp, tightly wound drama exploring the ethical dilemmas of investigative journalism. Starring Paul Newman as a businessman wrongfully accused of a crime and Sally Field as an ambitious reporter caught in the middle, the film exposed the devastating consequences of reckless reporting. At its heart, it asked a critical question: what happens when the press gets it wrong? Dylan played Teresa Perrone, a hardworking woman whose life is upended when she is falsely implicated in a scandal through an irresponsible news report. Unlike Newman's character, who fights back against the system, Teresa has no resources, no legal team, no way to undo the damage. She's an ordinary woman caught in the crossfire of a headline that should have never been printed. The public scrutiny becomes unbearable, and in one of the film's most gut-wrenching moments, Teresa takes her own life. The power of Dylan's performance wasn't in grand speeches or dramatic outbursts. Instead, it was in the quiet unraveling of a woman pushed past her limit. The subtle shifts in her expression, the way her voice wavered but never fully broke, the defeated way she carried herself. These were the details that made the performance unforgettable. Her portrayal wasn't just tragic, it was painfully real. Despite the limited screen time, Dylan left an impact. Critics singled out her performance, with some arguing that she had once again delivered Oscar-worthy work. But there was no nomination this time, no industry recognition beyond glowing reviews. As always, Dylan didn't campaign for awards or push for visibility. She did the work, delivered a performance that lingered long after the credits rolled, and moved on. While Absence of Malice was another critical success for her, it also reinforced something else. Melinda Dylan wasn't interested in playing the Hollywood game. She had never been one for self-promotion, and this role proved she didn't need it. The work spoke for itself. A Christmas Story. By 1983, Melinda Dylan had already delivered Oscar-nominated performances and worked with some of Hollywood's top directors. But the role that would make her a household name wasn't in a highbrow drama or a major blockbuster. It was in a modest holiday film about a kid and his obsession with a BB gun. A Christmas Story was adapted from the writings of Gene Shepard, who narrated the film himself. It was a slice-of-life comedy set in the 1940s, centered on young Ralphie Parker and his desperate attempts to convince his parents, teachers, and even Santa Claus that a Red Ryder BB gun was the perfect Christmas gift. The film was nostalgic, charming, and full of absurd yet relatable family moments. Dylan played Mrs. Parker, Ralphie's loving but slightly overwhelmed mother. Unlike many movie moms of the era, she didn't fit into the Hollywood mold of a flawless, picture-perfect parent. She wasn't a caricature, nor was she just a background figure. She felt real, equal parts nurturing and exhausted, firm yet affectionate. Whether she was scolding Ralphie for fighting, arguing with his father about the infamous leg lamp, or laughing uncontrollably when her younger son refused to eat dinner, Dylan made every scene feel like a real moment in a real home. One of the most beloved scenes in the film wasn't even in the script. When she bundles up Randy, Ralphie's little brother, in so many layers of winter clothes that he can barely move, his struggle to put his arms down sends her into an unscripted fit of laughter. Director Bob Clark kept the take in because it was pure, natural joy. something that defined Dylan's entire performance. Despite its now iconic status, A Christmas Story didn't make a huge splash when it was released. It performed modestly at the box office, grossing about $19 million against a $3.3 million budget, but it wasn't seen as an instant holiday classic. It wasn't until the late 1980s and early 1990s, when networks began airing it annually, that audiences fully embraced it. By the time TNT launched its now traditional 24-hour A Christmas Story marathon in 1997, the film had become a Christmas staple. The underrated roles. After A Christmas Story, Melinda Dylan didn't bask in the newfound recognition. She did what she always did. She moved on to the next role that felt right. While she never sought the spotlight, Hollywood still recognized her talent, and she remained a steady presence in film throughout the late 80s and 90s. One of her more mainstream roles came in Harry and the Hendersons, 1987, where she played the mother of a family who accidentally brings home Bigfoot. The film was a family-friendly hit, but Dylan once again avoided turning her character into a typical sitcom mom. Instead, she brought warmth and a believable sense of bewilderment to a story that could have easily veered into absurdity. She worked steadily in both comedies and dramas, often playing supporting characters who left a lasting impact. She played Kevin Kline's sister in The Prince of Tides, 1991, adding emotional weight to the film's already heavy themes. She had roles in How to Make an American Quilt, 1995, and To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, 1995, showcasing her ability to fit into any genre. But while Dylan was a familiar face, she was never a household name. She wasn't the kind of actress Hollywood built projects around, and that seemed to be exactly how she wanted it. By the late 1990s, her roles became fewer and farther between. It wasn't because she couldn't find work, she was just becoming more selective. And when Paul Thomas Anderson came calling, she knew she had one more performance left to give. The Magnolia moment. By the late 1990s, Melinda Dylan was rarely seen in Hollywood. She had already spent decades delivering powerful performances in films that ranged from sci-fi blockbusters to Oscar-winning dramas. But she wasn't constantly in the public eye. She never played the Hollywood game of interviews, premieres, and self-promotion. She worked when a project felt right and disappeared when it didn't. Then came Magnolia, 1999. A sprawling emotional drama from director Paul Thomas Anderson. The film explored the interwoven lives of deeply flawed people, each grappling with regret, trauma, or unresolved pain. It was an ensemble film packed with powerhouse performances: Tom Cruise, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Julianne Moore, and John C. Reilly, among others. But tucked within this emotionally volatile cast was Melinda Dylan, delivering one of the film's quietest yet most heartbreaking performances. She played Rose Gator, the long-estranged wife of Jimmy Gator, a game show host dying of cancer. Unlike the larger-than-life characters around her, Rose was subdued, a woman whose life had been shaped by quiet disappointment. She didn't yell, she didn't break down in dramatic fashion. She simply carried the weight of years of emotional distance with devastating authenticity. Unlike some of her earlier roles, which demanded intense, raw emotional displays, this one was all about restraint. Dylan knew how to make silence speak volumes. The pain in her eyes, the subtle hesitation in her voice, these small details made Rose one of the most emotionally affecting characters in the film. The movie was met with critical acclaim, earning 3 Oscar nominations and cementing Paul Thomas Anderson's reputation as one of Hollywood's most daring directors. Dylan's performance didn't go unnoticed. Critics praised her for the depth she brought to a character who could have been easily overlooked in a film filled with louder, more explosive moments. Yet, in classic Melinda Dylan fashion, she didn't capitalize on the attention. While her co-stars made the rounds at award shows and press events, she stayed out of the spotlight. No interviews, no promotional tours. Magnolia came and went, and so did she. It would be her last major role. After decades of brilliant, understated performances, Melinda Dylan quietly slipped away from Hollywood, leaving behind a body of work that needed no further explanation. Walking away without a word. Most actors don't retire quietly. They give interviews, hint at one last project, or make a grand farewell tour. Melinda Dylan did none of that. After decades of delivering some of Hollywood's most understated yet powerful performances, she simply stepped away. No announcement, no press release, just silence. Her last on-screen appearance was in Reign Over Me, 2007, a drama starring Adam Sandler and Don Cheadle. She played Ginger Templeman, a small but poignant role in a film about grief and healing. It wasn't a flashy send-off. It wasn't meant to be. After that, she vanished from the industry completely. No guest spots, no voice acting, no surprise cameos, just a clean break. Unlike many actors who slowly faded from the public eye, Dylan's departure was immediate and complete. She didn't transition into producing or directing. She didn't show up at award shows or participate in retrospectives about her past work. There were no social media accounts, no official statements about why she left, no updates on what came next. The woman who had brought so much depth to the screen was simply gone from it. Fans speculated about her decision. Had she grown disillusioned with the industry? Was she tired of playing the same roles? Or had she always intended to walk away once she felt satisfied with her work? There was no answer, and Dylan never felt the need to give one. While many actors stay in Hollywood out of necessity or nostalgia, she left on her own terms. It wasn't about a lack of roles. Directors still would have lined up to cast her. It wasn't about declining health. She was active at the time of her departure. It was a conscious decision, a rare act of control in an industry that rarely allows for it. In an era where celebrities document every moment of their lives, Melinda Dylan's quiet exit was almost unheard of. The mystery surrounding her disappearance only added to her legacy. She had spent a career avoiding the trappings of fame, and in the end, she avoided them once more. She had done her job, and she was done. No fame, no regrets. Hollywood runs on publicity. Actors are expected to stay in the public eye, constantly promoting their next project, attending award shows, and keeping their names relevant. Reinvention is key, whether through comebacks, brand deals, or a carefully orchestrated social media presence. Melinda Dylan never played by those rules. She wasn't interested in being a celebrity, and she never treated acting as a stepping stone to fame. Even at the height of her career, she kept a low profile, giving only the occasional interview, always keeping the focus on the work rather than herself. Even with 2 Oscar nominations under her belt, Dylan never campaigned for awards. She never attended endless Hollywood parties to network with the right people. There were no dramatic career reinventions, no sudden pivots to directing, and no late career attempts to grab headlines. Instead, she chose roles that felt right for her, not ones that kept her name in the conversation. While other actors worried about their box office draw, she took parts that spoke to her, even if they weren't commercially driven. That's why her filmography feels so intentional. Every role mattered, and every performance carried weight. The name she never claimed. Melinda Dylan wasn't the kind of actress who craved attention. She never chased fame, never cultivated an image, and never played the Hollywood game. For many, her name may not immediately ring a bell, but her performances? Unforgettable. Every December, millions of families watch A Christmas Story, laughing as Mrs. Parker battles a malfunctioning turkey, keeps her sons in line, and scoffs at her husband's beloved leg lamp. Her portrayal of an exhausted but loving mother feels timeless, capturing the everyday moments that make a family feel real. Sci-fi fans still hold Close Encounters of the Third Kind in high regard, and Dylan's performance remains one of the most emotionally gripping elements of the film. The terror and heartbreak she conveyed during the abduction scene are unforgettable, making it one of the most harrowing moments in science fiction history. Even after decades of advances in visual effects, it's her performance, not the special effects, that makes the scene work. For cinephiles, Magnolia remains a landmark film, and Dylan's role as Rose Gator is one of its most understated but emotionally devastating performances. Unlike her earlier films, There were no grand breakdowns or dramatic outbursts. Instead, she embodied quiet sorrow, the kind of pain that simmers under the surface, unspoken but deeply felt. Despite appearing in some of the most beloved and critically acclaimed films of her era, Dylan never sought to capitalize on her success. She never campaigned for awards, never pushed for bigger roles, and never fought for a seat at Hollywood's most exclusive tables. Unlike many of her peers, she didn't extend her career with nostalgia-driven cameos or reboots. She simply walked away, satisfied with the work she had done. On January 9, 2023, news quietly broke that Melinda Dylan had passed away at the age of 83. There were no major Hollywood tributes, no flood of headlines, no public farewell. Just a brief announcement, as understated as the woman herself. Her death was reported days after the fact, a reflection of the quiet life she had chosen. Even in her absence, she remains unforgettable. Not because she demanded recognition, but because she never needed to. Her performances left a lasting imprint, proving that the greatest actors aren't always the ones who seek the spotlight. They're the ones who leave something behind that people never forget. Oscar winner, Bond girl, Batman's Vicky Vale, and a PETA activist, Kim Basinger's career is as layered as it gets. But how did she navigate fame, financial ruin, and family struggles to leave her mark on Hollywood? Smalltown beginnings. Camila Ann Basinger was born on December 8, 1953 in Athens, Georgia. Her family blended artistry and practicality. Her father, Don, was a jazz musician who became a loan manager, while her mother, Ann, was a former model and competitive swimmer. Ann's performances in the Water Ballet Championships hinted at the creativity Kim would later channel. Growing up with 4 siblings, Kim's life was a mix of structure and self-expression. Athens was charming but far from the bright lights of major cities. For a shy girl like Kim, the idea of stardom seemed worlds away. Yet, even as a child, she found ways to express herself. At 3, she started ballet lessons, discovering freedom in movement. Dancing became her first stage and helped her build the confidence to step into the spotlight. By her teenage years, her striking looks and natural grace began to draw attention. Encouraged by her mother, she entered local beauty pageants, winning titles like Junior Miss Athens. These wins gave her a taste of performing and opened the door to broader opportunities. Competing in the Junior Miss Georgia pageant offered her a glimpse of a life beyond her hometown. While many of her peers planned for college or steady careers, Kim's ambitions stretched further. At 17, she enrolled at the University of Georgia following the expected path, but her journey soon took an unexpected turn. A scout from Ford Modeling Agency spotted her, instantly recognizing her potential. The opportunity was exciting but intimidating, especially for someone so tied to the comforts of home. Kim hesitated, unsure if she was ready to leave Athens for the unpredictable world of modeling in New York City. Ultimately, curiosity and ambition outweighed her fears. She packed her bags, said goodbye to her quiet hometown, and set out to explore a future she could only imagine. From pageants to NY modeling. Kim entered a world buzzing with opportunity and pressure. Signing with Ford Models in the early 1970s wasn't just a career milestone. It was her ticket to the big leagues. Her striking features and undeniable charm quickly set her apart. Within months, she was landing magazine covers like 17 and scoring major ad campaigns. Her face became a staple in households across the country. Success brought glamour, but also heavy demands. The modeling world could be relentless, and Kim felt it. The constant focus on appearance, the perfection expected at every shoot. It was exhausting. In interviews years later, she admitted the anxiety she faced during this time. Every detail of her image was under the microscope, and the weight of those expectations wasn't easy to carry. One of her most memorable gigs was a national campaign for Breck shampoo. It was the kind of job models dreamt of: recognition, status, and financial security all rolled into one. But for Kim, it felt empty. Despite the campaign's success, she began to realize that modeling wasn't her ultimate calling. Looking for something deeper, she enrolled at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City. There, she trained under Sanford Meisner, one of the most respected acting coaches of the time. Acting opened a door that modeling never could. It gave her a platform to express emotions, tell stories, and explore creative depths that resonated on a personal level. By the mid-1970s, she was at a pivotal moment. On one side, she had a thriving modeling career with stability and fame. On the other, an uncertain but exciting path in acting beckoned her. For someone who had spent years in front of a camera, the idea of starting over was terrifying, but also exhilarating. Kim made her choice. She walked away from modeling and set her sights on Hollywood, ready to embrace whatever came next. Transitioning to acting. Leaving behind a thriving modeling career, she stepped into an industry that wasn't impressed by her past success. To gain traction, she started small, taking guest roles on popular TV shows like McMillan and Wife, 1976, and Charlie's Angels, 1976. These parts didn't make her a star overnight, but they taught her the basics of acting and gave her much-needed on-camera experience. Her natural charm made an impression, though early on she was often reduced to playing the beautiful newcomer. The real breakthrough came in 1977 when she landed the lead in Katie, Portrait of a Centerfold. The made-for-TV movie followed a small-town girl chasing fame in Los Angeles, only to face the harsh reality of being judged solely on her appearance. The role hit close to home for Kim, who had her own battles with being typecast. Her performance was layered, emotional, and sincere, proving she was more than just a pretty face. Audiences saw her as a serious actress for the first time, and critics began to pay attention. Still, Hollywood wasn't quick to shake its stereotypes. Kim was often pigeonholed as a blonde bombshell, a label that threatened to trap her in one-dimensional roles. Refusing to settle, she became more selective about her projects, choosing characters that challenged her. This strategy wasn't without its challenges. Opportunities didn't come easy, and she had to fight to prove she was more than her looks. In 1981, she took a step forward with the miniseries From Here to Eternity. The project, a remake of the classic 1953 film, gave her the chance to showcase her acting chops. Playing a complex role in a high-profile production earned her critical acclaim and signaled a shift in how the industry viewed her. By the early 1980s, Kim's persistence was paying off. Casting directors started to take her seriously, and bigger opportunities were finally within reach. Hollywood had begun to notice that Kim Basinger wasn't just another model trying her luck. She was a talent to watch. The Bond girl breakthrough. In 1983, Kim Basinger made a bold move, landing the role of Domino Patachi in Never Say Never Again. This wasn't just another movie. It was a James Bond film, starring none other than Sean Connery. Being part of such a legendary franchise came with pressure, especially for someone still proving herself in Hollywood. Bond girls were often typecast as glamorous accessories, but Kim had other plans. The film, a reimagining of Thunderball, wasn't part of the official Bond series, but still had big expectations. Connery was returning to his iconic role after more than a decade, and the stakes were high. Sharing the screen with him could have been intimidating, but Kim handled it with confidence. Her performance brought Domino to life with unexpected layers of vulnerability and strength. She didn't just look the part, she gave the character depth. Critics and audiences took notice. Kim's chemistry with Connery was undeniable, and her screen presence was magnetic. While many actresses might have leaned on glamour alone, Kim dug deeper. She studied the character's motivations, delivering a performance that elevated Domino from sidekick to something more substantial. Reviews praised her ability to balance the character's allure with genuine emotion. Suddenly, she wasn't just a model making her way in acting. She was a legitimate star. The production wasn't without its drama. Connery reportedly clashed with director Irvin Kershner, leading to tension on set. But Kim stayed focused, earning respect for her professionalism. Even in the face of on-set challenges, she kept her cool, proving she could handle the demands of a major film. Never Say Never Again performed well, raking in over $160 million at the box office. The role wasn't just a win for the film, it was a win for Kim. She'd broken through the Bond girl stereotype and established herself as a leading actress. This performance didn't just boost her profile, it set the stage for even bigger opportunities to come. Kim was officially on her way to the Hollywood A-list, stardom in the 1980s. The 1980s were Kim Basinger's decade. Her big break came with The Natural, 1984, where she played Memo Paris, a femme fatale opposite Robert Redford. The film wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural touchstone, earning multiple Oscar nominations. Kim's portrayal of Memo wasn't one-dimensional. She gave the character depth, showing Hollywood she was more than just a pretty face. Critics took notice, and suddenly, everyone knew her name. Her next move? Shocking audiences in 9.5 weeks, 1986. Paired with Mickey Rourke, Kim tackled one of the most provocative films of its time. The story of a toxic, obsessive relationship blurred the line between art and scandal. Some countries banned it outright. Yet, the controversy fueled its success, turning it into a cult classic. Kim's performance was raw, intense, and unflinching. She didn't just act, she embodied the role, showing a fearlessness that set her apart in an industry obsessed with playing it safe. Not one to get stuck in a single type of role, she switched gears in Blind Date, 1987, a romantic comedy alongside Bruce Willis. Kim showed she could do funny as effortlessly as she did dramatic or daring. Her chemistry with Willis kept audiences hooked, proving her versatility as a leading lady. Then came Batman, 1989. As Vicky Vale, Kim brought warmth and charm to Tim Burton's dark, brooding Gotham City. Starring opposite Michael Keaton, she played an intrepid journalist who held her own amidst the chaos of the Caped Crusaders' world. The film smashed box office records, grossing over $400 million globally. Kim's performance was essential to its success, adding heart to the gothic blockbuster. By the end of the decade, Kim wasn't just a star, she was a Hollywood powerhouse. Whether in gritty dramas, lighthearted comedies, or massive blockbusters, she made every role her own. Her 1980s career was a masterclass in reinvention, paving the way for an unpredictable and eventful 1990s. A rocky personal life. As Kim's career soared, her personal life became more complicated. In 1980, she married makeup artist Ron Snyder Britton after meeting on a photo shoot. At first, their marriage seemed stable, but Snyder Britton later revealed in his memoir, Longer Than Forever, that Kim's struggles with severe anxiety and perfectionism often strained their relationship. He described how her insecurities about her appearance and career created emotional distance between them. Their marriage lasted nearly a decade before ending in divorce in 1989. Not long after the split, Kim found herself back in the tabloids when she began dating Alec Baldwin in the early 1990s. The two met while filming The Marrying Man, 1991, and their chemistry wasn't just for the cameras. Their romance became headline news almost overnight. By 1993, they were married, and in 1995, they welcomed their daughter, Ireland. From the outside, they seemed like a Hollywood dream team, but their relationship was far from perfect. Behind the scenes, things were rocky. Baldwin's fiery temper often made news, and Kim reportedly struggled with the constant media attention. Paparazzi seemed to camp outside their lives, capturing tense moments that fed endless gossip stories. The pressure of their high-profile marriage and parenthood, combined with the demands of their careers, created cracks that were hard to ignore. Kim decided to take a step back from acting to focus on her family. It was a bold choice for a Hollywood A-lister, but it came at a cost. While she cherished the time with Ireland, the break only fueled the tabloids. Stories about her struggles with anxiety and her marriage filled magazine covers, often eclipsing her professional accomplishments. Financial and career setbacks. The early 1990s were a whirlwind for Kim Basinger, marked by ambitious choices and public fallout. Among her boldest moves was purchasing Brazelton, Georgia for $20 million. This tiny town of around 500 residents became her passion project. She envisioned it as a creative oasis, blending tourism and film production. The idea was groundbreaking but riddled with challenges. Legal red tape, funding gaps, and logistical nightmares caused the dream to unravel. Within a few years, the town was sold at a steep loss, leaving her finances in shambles. Critics were quick to pounce, calling it a reckless move that symbolized Hollywood excess. Then came the boxing Helena debacle in 1993. The film, directed by Jennifer Lynch, had a controversial plot involving a surgeon amputating a woman's limbs. Initially, Kim signed on as the lead but backed out after reconsidering the disturbing material. The producers weren't pleased. They took her to court, suing for breach of contract and demanding $8.1 million in damages. The judge ruled against her, and the payout left her financially strapped. Filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection became her only option. The fallout wasn't just financial, it was deeply personal. The press painted her as impulsive and irresponsible. Headlines turned her into a cautionary tale, and Hollywood insiders began to question if she was a safe bet for big projects. Film offers slowed to a trickle, and her star power seemed to dim. But Kim wasn't one to wallow. She pivoted to smaller projects, quietly rebuilding her reputation. Her choices reflected a mix of humility and determination. She knew she had to work her way back, proving she could still deliver as an actress. Comeback with L.A. Confidential. In 1997, Kim Basinger's career found its saving grace with L.A. Confidential. This neo-noir classic, directed by Curtis Hanson, brought Hollywood's dark and dirty past to the forefront. Based on James Ellroy's novel, the film delved into the corruption and scandals of 1950s Los Angeles. The ensemble cast, Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, and Kevin Spacey, was stellar, but Kim's portrayal of Lynn Bracken stood out. Lynn wasn't your average femme fatale. Modeled after Veronica Lake, she was more than just a glamorous escort. Lynn had depth, empathetic, strong, and quietly commanding. Kim brought a subtle, magnetic quality to the role. Her performance wasn't loud or flashy, it was restrained, making every glance and line of dialogue hit harder. Critics called her portrayal a perfect mix of fragility and inner strength, elevating the film's emotional weight. The movie itself was a smash hit, earning 9 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. Kim's performance earned her a Best Supporting Actress nomination, her first recognition from the Academy. For an actress once dismissed by critics as just another pretty face, this was a major moment. Then came Oscar night, March 23, 1998. When her name was called, Kim took the stage, holding back tears as she accepted the award for Best Supporting Actress. Her speech was short but heartfelt. She dedicated the win to every little girl out there dreaming of a moment like this. It wasn't just a win for her career. It was personal validation after years of setbacks and scrutiny. L.A. Confidential wasn't just a film for Kim. It was her comeback story. It proved that she wasn't done, and more importantly, that her talent couldn't be boxed in by Hollywood stereotypes. The role reignited her career, putting her back on the map as a serious actress. Diverse roles in the 2000s. Her post-Oscar career was anything but predictable. After the success of L.A. Confidential, she used her clout to explore a mix of mainstream hits, indie dramas, and a few less-than-stellar projects. Her choices revealed an actress eager to evolve, even if it meant stepping out of her comfort zone. In 2002, she reunited with director Curtis Hanson for 8 Mile, a semi-autobiographical film about Eminem's early struggles. Kim played Stephanie Smith, the struggling single mother of Jimmy B. Rabbit, Eminem. It was a far cry from her glamorous roles of the past. Stephanie was gritty, flawed, and burdened by life's harsh realities. Critics praised Kim for grounding the character with quiet authenticity, making her struggles feel raw and real. 8 Mile became a global phenomenon, earning over $240 million at the box office. It also snagged an Academy Award for Best Original Song with Eminem's Lose Yourself. Kim's work in the film reminded audiences that she could thrive in any genre. During the 2000s, Kim gravitated towards smaller, character-driven projects. The Door in the Floor, 2004, paired her with Jeff Bridges in a heart-wrenching story about loss and the unraveling of a marriage. Her portrayal of a grieving mother was both subtle and devastating, earning widespread praise. In The Burning Plain, 2008, Kim delivered a deeply emotional performance as a woman grappling with guilt and betrayal. These films may not have been box office hits, but they underscored her ability to tackle heavy, complex roles with grace. Not every project landed well. I Dreamed of Africa, 2000, based on Kuki Gallman's memoir, struggled to connect with audiences and critics, despite Kim's dedication to the physically demanding shoot. Similarly, the supernatural thriller Bless the Child, 2000, was criticized for its predictable storyline. These setbacks didn't seem to faze Kim. She continued choosing projects based on her own artistic instincts, not Hollywood's expectations. Hits, misses, or hidden gems, Kim wasn't afraid to take risks. Her filmography from this era reflected a commitment to growth, proving she was far more than just a Hollywood starlet. Life beyond the spotlight.
Imagine a world where beauty and talent are only the opening chapters of an extraordinary saga. Enter Susan George, a dazzling presence in the cinematic universe whose journey transcends the glamour of Hollywood. This isn't just the story of a starlet rising to fame. It's a gripping tale of resilience in a world where lights and cameras mask battles against towering egos and relentless challenges. With every setback, Susan's unyielding strength rewrites the script of what it means to be a true icon. From the highs of stardom to the shadows of struggle, her life is a testament to perseverance, a narrative so compelling that it blurs the line between real and reality. Who is Susan George? Susan George is a retired English actress known for her work in film and television. She was born on July 26, 1950 in Surbiton, Surrey, England. Susan George began her acting career at a young age and gained recognition for her performances in various films and television shows. In her early years, she loved acting so much that she intentionally performed poorly on her 11+ exam during school, leading to her placement in a secondary modern school instead of a grammar school. This strategic choice was made to enable her to follow her childhood dream of attending drama school. Some of her notable works include appearances in The Dickie Henderson Show, 1962, as well as roles in television series like ITV Television Playhouse, Swallows and Amazons, and Weaver's Green. In the realm of cinema, she had small but significant roles in films such as The Sorcerers, 1967, and Up the Junction, 1968. Susan George's career spanned several decades, and she made a mark for herself as a talented actress. Beyond her professional life, she has been known for her holiday memories at a caravan park in Fontegary, South Wales, reflecting a connection to both her career and personal life. Keep in mind that information about her life and career may have evolved beyond my last knowledge update in January 2022. Early career. Susan George's early acting career was a journey marked by determination, talent, and a series of pivotal moments that propelled her into the spotlight. Her first significant break came with an appearance in The Dickie Henderson Show in 1962. While this marked her initial foray into the world of entertainment, it was just the beginning of a promising career. The turning point arrived when Susan secured her first movie role. The film that marked her debut was The Sorcerers, released in 1967. This psychological science fiction horror film directed by Michael Reeves provided Susan with a platform to showcase her acting prowess on the big screen. For a young actress in the making, this opportunity was more than just a role. It was a stepping stone into the captivating world of cinema. Following her debut, Susan George continued to carve a niche for herself in the film industry. In 1968, she took on another notable role in the film Up the Junction. This drama, directed by Peter Collinson, allowed her to explore different facets of her acting abilities. The film's narrative and Susan's performance contributed to her growing reputation as a versatile and talented actress. As her career gained momentum, Susan George continued to grace the silver screen with a string of roles that showcased her versatility. Whether it was navigating through the psychological nuances of a character or bringing emotional depth to dramatic scenes, Susan became a sought-after talent in the industry. Susan's later years in Hollywood. In the latter phase of Susan George's illustrious career, she solidified her status as a talented and enchanting actress, leaving an enduring impact on global audiences. Transitioning from the defining roles of her early years, Susan embraced diverse and challenging characters that showcased her depth and versatility. Her later career was marked by a series of remarkable performances in noteworthy films. One standout moment came with her role in Straw Dogs 1971, a psychological thriller directed by Sam Peckinpah. Susan's portrayal in the film was both riveting and emotionally charged, earning her acclaim for her nuanced performance. But also, by this time, she had started to become a household name, and fame and fortune followed. Then, following the success of Straw Dogs, Susan George continued to captivate audiences in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, 1974, a high-octane action film directed by John Ho. Her presence on screen added a layer of sophistication to the genre, demonstrating her ability to elevate diverse cinematic narratives. There was no doubt as to whether or not she was a one-hit wonder. She was perfect for whatever role she was asked to play in, and she did her job to perfection. As Susan delved into the realm of drama, her role in Mandingo 1975, directed by Richard Fleischer, showcased her versatility. The film, set against the backdrop of the antebellum South, allowed Susan to navigate complex themes with finesse, earning her recognition for the depth she brought to her character. Throughout her later career, Susan George's talent was not only acknowledged but celebrated. Critics and audiences alike praised her authenticity and emotional resonance, recognizing her as a performer who could seamlessly inhabit a wide array of roles. Simultaneously, her timeless beauty and innate charm continued to make her a joy to watch on screen. Collaborating with esteemed directors and fellow accomplished actors, Susan's filmography in the later years included Tomorrow Never Comes, 1978, and The House Where Evil Dwells, 1982, showcasing her enduring appeal. Beyond her acting abilities, Susan George became a cultural icon, celebrated for the indelible mark she left on the world of cinema, a legacy defined by talent, beauty, and the sheer pleasure she brought to audiences in each cinematic endeavor. Awards and recognitions. While she may not have clinched the golden statuettes of Hollywood's major awards, Susan George was well recognized regardless. One notable moment in the limelight came with the Evening Standard British Film Award in 1972. Susan George earned a nomination for Best Actress for her gripping performance in Straw Dogs. The film's controversial nature and her portrayal of Amy Sumner showcased her ability to immerse herself in challenging roles that left a lasting impression. In 1974, Susan George secured the Best Actress Award at the Brussels International Film Festival for her role in The Sorrows of Satan. This recognition underscored her international appeal and marked a triumph in the diverse landscape of her filmography. A nomination for the International Fantasy Film Award for Best Actress came Susan's way, acknowledging her contribution to the horror genre with Die Screaming Mary Ann in 1971. This recognition hinted at her versatility and willingness to delve into the fantastical and macabre. The British Academy of Film and Television Arts, BAFTA, acknowledged Susan George's talent with a nomination in 1972 for Straw Dogs. This nod from the prestigious British Film Awards ceremony highlighted the critical acclaim she received for her impactful performances. Across the pond, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association recognized Susan's potential, nominating her for the Golden Globe Award for Most Promising Newcomer, Female in 1971 for Straw Dogs. This nomination marked her as a rising star on the international cinematic stage. Intriguing personal life. In addition to her accomplishments in the entertainment industry, Susan shared a deep bond with animals, particularly championing animal welfare causes. Her commitment went beyond advocacy, extending to her active involvement in initiatives aimed at improving the lives of animals, reflecting a woman with a compassionate heart dedicated to making a positive impact. Not only a talented actress and philanthropist, Susan George is also an avid equestrian. Her passion for horses transcended mere appreciation. She actively breeds Arabian horses with a stud farm named Georgian Arabians. This facet of her life showcases a unique connection with nature and animals, demonstrating her commitment to nurturing and preserving the beauty of these majestic creatures. Susan's personal interests extended into the world of entrepreneurship. Her ventures in the fashion industry highlighted a creative side that complemented her artistic pursuits, showcasing a woman of versatility and entrepreneurial spirit. In her personal life, Susan George's relationships were integral to her journey. She shared a profound connection with British actor Simon McCorkindale, whom she married on October 5, 1984. Their union, lasting until his passing on October 14, 2010, marked a significant chapter in her life. Despite not having children, their partnership was a testament to enduring love and mutual support. Before her marriage to Simon, Susan's personal life included a 4-year relationship with American singer Jack Jones. Around 1980, she spent another 4 years as the partner of casino manager Derek Webster. These relationships, while not without their complexities, added layers to Susan's personal narrative, shaping the woman behind the actress. As Susan George navigated the complexities of both her personal and professional worlds, her life became a mosaic of experiences, from the warmth of family bonds to the excitement of romantic entanglements, from the quiet joys of horse breeding to the entrepreneurial spirit that fueled her creative pursuits. Her journey humanizes her beyond the cinematic spotlight. Susan George was a woman of substance, passion, and purpose. Kim Novak, with her enigmatic allure and undeniable talent, quickly ascended to the zenith of Tinseltown's elite, but beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect ascent lurked a scandal so potent it threatened to eclipse her shining star forever. It was the year 1957, a time when Hollywood's glamour masked a world of rigid studio control and unspoken secrets. Novak, fresh-faced and captivating, had become the darling of the silver screen, her every move watched and adored by millions. Yet, in the shadows of this glittering facade, a storm was brewing, a scandal that would shake the foundations of her burgeoning career. This wasn't just any scandal. It was a maelstrom that entangled the highest echelons of Hollywood's power players, a story that intertwined personal affairs with public outrage, testing the limits of the era's moral compass. As the scandal unfolded, it raised questions that went far beyond Novak's personal saga. It mirrored the very essence of a changing America, grappling with issues of privacy, morality, and the relentless glare of the public eye. In the heart of this storm stood Kim Novak, at once a victim and a fighter, her career hanging in the balance. This is the story of how one of Hollywood's brightest stars faced her darkest hour, a tale of intrigue, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of redemption in an industry known for both making and breaking dreams. The enigma of Kim Novak. Kim Novak, born Marilyn Pauline Novak, was not just a Hollywood actress. She was an enigma that captivated a generation. Born on February 13, 1933, in Chicago, Illinois, Novak's journey to stardom was as unconventional as it was meteoric. Her early life was far removed from the glitz of Hollywood, growing up in a modest family of Czech descent. Novak's father was a history teacher, and her mother worked in a factory, instilling in her a strong work ethic and a sense of humility. Novak's foray into the world of glamour began almost by chance. While on a break from her studies at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, she took a job as a model for a local department store. This job would unknowingly set the stage for her entry into Hollywood. Her striking beauty and natural charisma caught the eye of a talent agent, leading to a screen test for Columbia Pictures. In 1954, Novak landed in Hollywood, a city where dreams were made and broken. Columbia Pictures, recognizing her potential, decided to mold her into their version of a movie star. They changed her name from Marilyn to Kim, fearing that her real name was too similar to that of Marilyn Monroe. This name change was symbolic of the transformation Novak would undergo in the hands of the studio system. Novak's early roles were small, but her presence was undeniable. She had a unique blend of vulnerability and strength that shone through on screen. Her breakthrough came with the film Picnic in 1955, where her performance garnered critical acclaim and catapulted her to stardom. She followed this success with a string of hits, including The Man with the Golden Arm and Pal Joey. However, Novak's rise to fame was not without its challenges. She constantly battled the studio's attempts to control her image and personal life. Novak wanted to be recognized for her talent, not just her looks. She fought for roles that challenged her as an actress, often clashing with studio heads who wanted to pigeonhole her into the role of a mere glamour icon. Despite these struggles, Novak's star continued to rise. She became known for her enigmatic presence, a quality that made her both alluring and mysterious. This mystique was part of her appeal, drawing audiences to theaters not just to see her perform, but to try and understand the woman behind the persona. As Novak's fame grew, so did the attention on her personal life. Her relationships and off-screen activities became fodder for the media, placing her under the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. It was in this intense spotlight that the scandal, which would become a defining moment in her career, began to unfold. Novak's meteoric rise. Kim Novak's ascent in Hollywood during the 1950s was nothing short of spectacular. After her breakthrough role in Picnic, she quickly became one of the most sought-after actresses in the industry. Her performances in Vertigo, directed by the legendary Alfred Hitchcock, and Bell, Book and Candle, alongside James Stewart, solidified her status as a leading lady and a symbol of Hollywood's golden age. Vertigo, released in 1958, is often cited as one of the greatest films ever made. Novak's portrayal of the mysterious and troubled Madeline Judy was a performance that showcased her depth and versatility as an actress. The film's exploration of obsession and identity resonated with Novak on a personal level, mirroring her own struggles with the Hollywood system's attempt to shape her identity. Off-screen, Novak's life was equally captivating. Her beauty and charisma led to high-profile relationships, including a rumored affair with Sammy Davis Jr., a relationship that was said to have caused controversy due to the racial tensions of the era. Novak, however, remained undeterred by the gossip and scandal, focusing instead on her craft and choosing roles that challenged the stereotypical image of a Hollywood starlet. Despite her success, Novak's relationship with Hollywood was complex. She was a star who shunned the typical Hollywood lifestyle, preferring to spend her time painting and engaging in other artistic pursuits. This detachment from the Hollywood scene added to her mystique and made her an even more intriguing figure to her fans and the media. Novak's rise to fame was not just a testament to her talent, but also to her determination to succeed on her own terms. She navigated the challenges of the studio system, which often typecast women and dictated their public and private lives, with a quiet strength and resilience. Her ability to maintain her individuality in an industry that often demanded conformity was a significant achievement. As her career progressed, Novak continued to take on diverse and challenging roles, refusing to be typecast or limited by the expectations of others. Her performances were marked by an emotional depth and a sense of authenticity that resonated with audiences. However, it was during this period of professional triumph that the scandal, which would become one of the most defining moments of her career, began to take shape. The controversy that erupted would test Novak's resilience and ultimately shape her legacy in Hollywood. The scandal erupts, a Hollywood crisis. The scandal that enveloped Kim Novak's career in the late 1950s was a convergence of personal and professional turmoil, magnified by the era's societal norms and the unforgiving nature of Hollywood's star-making machinery. At the heart of this scandal was Novak's relationship with Sammy Davis Jr., a talented and charismatic entertainer who, like Novak, was at the peak of his career. In an era marked by racial segregation and discrimination, the rumored relationship between Novak, a white actress, and Davis, an African-American entertainer, was more than just a tabloid sensation. It was a direct challenge to the deeply ingrained prejudices of the time. The relationship, which began as a mutual admiration for each other's talents, quickly evolved into something more, drawing the ire of both the public and the powers that be in Hollywood. The studio heads, particularly Harry Cohn of Columbia Pictures, were alarmed by the potential impact of this relationship on Novak's career and the studio's reputation. Cohn, known for his authoritarian control over his stars, reportedly went to great lengths to end the relationship, including threats and intimidation. The pressure exerted by the studio was immense, and it took a significant toll on both Novak and Davis. The media frenzy surrounding the relationship was relentless. Newspapers and magazines were filled with speculative stories, and the couple was hounded by paparazzi. The scandal was fueled by a society that was not ready to accept an interracial relationship, especially one involving two high-profile celebrities. For Novak, the scandal was a harsh intrusion into her personal life, a life she had tried to keep separate from her public persona. The scrutiny and judgment she faced were a stark reminder of the price of fame. The scandal also highlighted the darker side of Hollywood, where personal lives were often manipulated for the sake of public image and profit. Despite the turmoil, Novak remained defiant, refusing to let the studio dictate her personal life. Her stand against the studio's interference was a bold move, especially considering the power dynamics of Hollywood at the time. This defiance, however, came at a cost. The scandal began to overshadow her professional achievements, and her relationship with the studio became increasingly strained. The scandal surrounding Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. was more than just a Hollywood controversy. It was a reflection of the societal tensions of the era. It exposed the racial prejudices and the moral hypocrisy of a society that was on the cusp of significant change. For Novak, it was a defining moment that tested her character and resilience, shaping her legacy in an industry that was all too willing to sacrifice personal happiness for public image. Behind the scenes, the industry's role. The scandal involving Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. didn't just play out in the public eye, it was deeply influenced by the machinations of the Hollywood industry, particularly the studio system that dominated the era. This chapter delves into the role that Hollywood executives in the studio system played in both escalating and managing the scandal. During the 1950s, the studio system in Hollywood was at its zenith. Studios like Columbia Pictures, where Novak was under contract, wielded enormous power over their stars' careers and personal lives. Studio heads like Harry Cohn were notorious for their authoritarian control, often dictating not just the professional choices of their stars, but their personal ones as well. In Novak's case, her relationship with Sammy Davis Jr. was seen as a liability by the studio. At a time when racial segregation was still legal in parts of the United States, such a high-profile interracial relationship was considered damaging to Novak's public image and, by extension, to the studio's financial interests. The studio's response was swift and severe. Reports suggest that Harry Cohn, in particular, took extreme measures to end the relationship, including employing threats and engaging with organized crime figures to intimidate Davis. This intervention by the studio was not just about preserving Novak's image. It was indicative of the broader societal norms and prejudices of the time. The studio's actions reflected a deep-seated racism and a willingness to enforce these prejudices to maintain the status quo. The scandal thus became a battleground, with Novak and Davis's personal lives caught in the crossfire of a larger cultural and racial struggle. The media played a significant role in this saga as well. Tabloids and gossip columns, hungry for sensational stories, amplified the scandal, often ignoring the human cost to Novak and Davis. The relentless media scrutiny added another layer of pressure, making it increasingly difficult for Novak to navigate her professional and personal life. Behind the scenes, the scandal revealed the darker aspects of Hollywood's glamour. It showed how the industry, which often celebrated themes of love and freedom on screen, was in reality bound by conservative, racially biased, and moralistic attitudes. The studio's handling of the scandal was a stark reminder of the control they exerted over their stars and the lengths they would go to protect their investments, often at the expense of individual autonomy and happiness. For Novak, the scandal and the studio's response were a turning point. It forced her to confront the harsh realities of the industry and to reassess her place within it. The experience would leave a lasting impact on her career and her view of Hollywood, shaping her future choices both on and off the screen. Novak's response: fighting back. In the midst of the scandal that threatened to engulf her career, Kim Novak's response was one of resilience and defiance. This chapter explores how Novak navigated the tumultuous period, standing up against the studio system and societal norms that sought to dictate her personal life and professional choices. Faced with overwhelming pressure from Columbia Pictures and its head Harry Cohn to end her relationship with Sammy Davis Jr., Novak was put in an incredibly difficult position. The studio's interference was not just a matter of professional concern, it was a deeply personal intrusion. Yet Novak's response was not one of submission. Instead, she chose to stand her ground, a decision that was both brave and risky given the era and the power dynamics of Hollywood. Novak's defiance was a significant act of resistance against the controlling and often oppressive studio system. Her refusal to bow to the studio's demands was a statement of her autonomy as an individual, not just as a star under contract. This stance, however, came with consequences. It strained her relationship with Columbia Pictures and Harry Cohn, and it placed her career in jeopardy. Despite these challenges, Novak's response to the scandal also demonstrated her strength of character. She was unwilling to compromise her personal values for the sake of her career. This decision was particularly notable in an industry where many stars were forced to make significant personal sacrifices to maintain their public image and career trajectory. Moreover, Novak's response to the scandal was a reflection of the changing times. The late 1950s were a period of social and cultural transition, with the civil rights movement beginning to challenge the entrenched racial prejudices in American society. Novak's relationship with Davis and her stand against the studio's attempts to control it can be seen as part of this broader shift towards greater social and personal freedom. In the end, Novak's response to the scandal was a defining moment in her career. It showcased her as an individual with the courage to challenge the status quo both in her personal life and in the rigid structure of Hollywood. This chapter of her life not only impacted her career trajectory, but also contributed to her legacy as an actress who was not afraid to fight for her beliefs and stand up against the powerful forces of her industry. Public perception and media frenzy. The scandal involving Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. was not just a private affair between two celebrities. It became a public spectacle, fueled by a media frenzy and shaped by the public's perception. This chapter delves into how the scandal was received by the public and the role of the media in shaping that perception. In the 1950s, Hollywood stars were not just actors, they were symbols of glamour, romance, and the American dream. Their public images were carefully crafted and fiercely protected by the studios. Novak, with her beauty and talent, had been built up as a dreamy, untouchable screen goddess. Her rumored relationship with Davis, therefore, was more than just gossip. It was a story that challenged the public's perception of her and the carefully constructed image of Hollywood. The media played a crucial role in this. Newspapers, magazines, and the burgeoning television industry were all abuzz with the story. The scandal was sensationalized, with speculative and often sensational stories dominating the headlines. This media coverage was not just about reporting on a celebrity relationship, it was a reflection of the societal attitudes of the time, particularly regarding race and relationships. The public's reaction to the scandal was mixed. While some admired Novak for her talent and saw the scandal as an invasion of her privacy, others were swayed by the racial prejudices of the era. The relationship was seen by many as controversial, not just because of the interracial aspect, but also because it defied the traditional norms and expectations of a Hollywood star. For Novak, the media frenzy and public scrutiny were overwhelming. The scandal, which had started as a personal matter, had spiraled into a public debate about race, morality, and the role of celebrities in society. It placed her under a microscope, with every move, every appearance, and every statement being dissected and discussed. The public perception of the scandal, as shaped by the media, had a significant impact on Novak's career. It overshadowed her professional achievements and became a defining aspect of her public image. The scandal also highlighted the power of the media in shaping public opinion and the vulnerability of celebrities to this power. The aftermath, career impact. The scandal involving Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. had far-reaching implications, particularly for Novak's career in Hollywood. This chapter examines the aftermath of the scandal and how it impacted Novak's professional life in the years that followed. The immediate aftermath of the scandal was a period of turbulence for Novak. The intense media scrutiny and the controversy surrounding her relationship with Davis placed her under a spotlight that was more invasive than celebratory. The scandal, coupled with the studio's disapproval, led to a cooling of her relationship with Columbia Pictures. This strain with the studio, which had been instrumental in building her career, meant fewer leading roles and a noticeable shift in the trajectory of her career. Despite these challenges, Novak continued to work in Hollywood. She appeared in several films after the scandal, but the roles she was offered were different. They were often less prominent or less critically acclaimed than her earlier work. This change was partly due to the evolving nature of Hollywood and the decline of the studio system, but it was also a direct consequence of the scandal and its impact on her public image. The scandal also had a psychological impact on Novak. The invasion of her privacy and the judgment she faced took a toll on her. It led her to become more guarded and cautious about her public image and personal life. This shift was reflected in her choices and her approach to her career. She became more selective about her roles and increasingly sought to distance herself from the Hollywood limelight. In the long term, the scandal and its aftermath played a role in Novak's decision to step away from Hollywood. Tired of the constant scrutiny and the limitations imposed by the industry, she eventually chose to pursue a life away from the cameras. This decision was not just a retreat from the public eye, it was an assertion of her independence and a...
Today's celebrities get canceled over a tweet. Back then, these golden age icons got away with lawsuits, arrests, and full-blown cover-ups and still showed up to award shows like royalty. Errol Flynn defined morality laws. By the early 1940s, his reputation was out of control. Women, booze, and bar fights followed him everywhere. But in 1942, things got serious. He was accused of misconduct with 2 minors, a scandal that could have ended anyone else's career. Flynn didn't panic. He leaned into the spotlight. At trial, his legal team turned the courtroom into a circus. Fans camped outside. Reporters hung on every detail. Flynn smirked through it all, cracking jokes and signing autographs between breaks. He swore it was all lies. His defense claimed the girls were after money and fame. The jury believed him or just didn't care. He walked out a free man. After the trial, he kept working like nothing happened. Warner Brothers stood by him. His next film hit theaters months later. The scandal barely touched his career. That's when Hollywood realized something. Flynn was bulletproof. He once bragged, "I like my whiskey old and my women young." No one made him take it back. The phrase followed him for years and he didn't mind. What should have ended his career only made him more infamous. He wasn't humbled. He doubled down. For the rest of the decade, he coasted on charm, controversy, and sheer arrogance. And the system let him. Bette Davis fought Warner Brothers. In 1936, Davis went to war with her own studio. Warner Brothers kept giving her weak scripts, one after another. She called them junk, and she was done playing window dressing in bad films. So she walked. Then she sued. Bette left for England and tried to work overseas, even though she was still under contract. She hoped a British court would let her break free. That didn't happen. Warner Brothers won the case, and Davis had to crawl back to Hollywood. She was broke, embarrassed, and technically in the wrong. But here's the twist. She still got what she wanted. Instead of punishing her, Jack Warner gave her better roles. Within a few years, she won her second Oscar for Jezebel. By 1942, she was the highest-paid woman in America. That lawsuit, it didn't hurt her. It made her iconic. She didn't just stand up for herself. She made a scene and then made history. On set, she demanded top billing, script approval, and even lighting control. She fought directors. She fired agents. She knew she was hard to work with, and she leaned into it. Clark Gable refused military duty. When World War II broke out, plenty of stars rushed to enlist. Jimmy Stewart signed up. So did Henry Fonda. But Clark Gable held off. At 41, he said he was too old. MGM wanted to keep him working, and he agreed. At first, the public let it slide. Gable had just lost his wife, Carole Lombard, in a plane crash while she was on a war bond tour. People gave him space, but then they didn't. Headlines started asking why the King of Hollywood wasn't in uniform. Stewart was flying combat missions. Gable was still filming. Under pressure, he finally enlisted in the Army Air Forces in August 1942. He went through training and even flew a few missions over Europe. But let's be honest, he was protected. Crews cleared the way. Commanders made sure he stayed safe. He narrated recruiting films and posed for photos in uniform. Gable was promoted to major in less than a year. Officially, he earned it. Unofficially, his fame helped. He served, yes, but not like the rest. After the war, the public forgave him. Hollywood welcomed him back with open arms. But those early months left a mark. He had waited. He hadn't rushed in like the others, and no one really forgot that. Joan Crawford, blackballed directors. By the late 1940s, her career was on a hot streak again, thanks to Mildred Pierce. That role earned her an Oscar. It also gave her more power than ever, and she used it without apology. On set, Crawford demanded custom lighting, last-minute rewrites, and approval over her co-stars. She kept a mirror near the camera to check her angles mid-scene. Directors who pushed back were iced out. She once had a cinematographer replaced because she didn't like how her cheekbones looked. Behind the scenes, she took notes on who crossed her. One director called her the toughest dame in the business. Another refused to work with her ever again. She didn't care. If a man had done the same, she claimed he'd be called brilliant. Crawford didn't just want control, she expected it. She studied scripts obsessively, annotated every page, and rehearsed alone under harsh lights to perfect her image. It wasn't about the role. It was about staying on top. Eventually, the studios stopped fighting her. They gave in. For years, she could get people fired with a phone call. Her enemies called her ruthless. Her fans called her unstoppable. But the industry never forgot how hard she was to manage. As she aged, the roles dried up. Directors passed. Producers hesitated. By the 1960s, Crawford was still a name, but no longer a threat. John Barrymore drank on set. By the 1940s, Barrymore wasn't just acting drunk. He was drunk. All the time. Once called the greatest stage actor of his generation, Barrymore had turned into a walking headline. Studios didn't drop him right away. He was still a Barrymore. But by 1940, his drinking had spiraled. On the set of Playmates, his last film, he couldn't remember lines. Crew members wrote cue cards and hid them all over the set. He'd stumble through scenes, reading from behind props, furniture, and even other actors. He made jokes about it. So did the press. People laughed, but no one was fooled. Barrymore was fading, and fast. Directors tried to work around him. Editors pieced together scenes like puzzles. But the truth was clear. He wasn't performing anymore. He was just showing up. He once said, "My only regret in life is that I didn't drink more champagne." That line stuck with people. It sounded charming. But behind it was a man no one could control. Studios still cast him out of habit. Audiences still showed up. At first. But eventually, even they stopped laughing. Barrymore died in 1942. He was 60. By then, his reputation had turned into a cautionary tale. Marlene Dietrich controlled her image. She never let anyone decide how she looked, ever. By the late 1940s, she had built a brand on mystery, beauty, and control. Studios might have paid the bills, but Dietrich ran the show. On every set, she brought her own lighting expert. Not to light the scene, just to light her face. She rejected costumes she didn't like, refused camera angles that didn't flatter. She even cut lines if she thought they didn't suit her image. She once told a director, "I make my own legend." And she did. She curated every still photo, screened every press interview, and approved how her films were edited. If her cheekbones weren't highlighted just right, reshoot. It wasn't just vanity, but strategy. Dietrich understood the power of visuals long before Instagram. She knew one bad angle could kill a career. So she never gave anyone the chance. Studios gave up fighting her. They let her do it her way because her films made money, and audiences were hypnotized. The smirk, the cigarette, the tailored suits, none of it was accidental. Other actresses followed rules. Dietrich rewrote them. Humphrey Bogart mocked studio heads. He didn't care what studio bosses thought. By 1950, he was one of the biggest stars in the world, and he acted like it. He called producers idiots, walked out of meetings, and openly mocked executives who tried to push him around. Warner Brothers didn't fire him. They needed him. After The Maltese Falcon and Casablanca, he was a box office guarantee, and he knew it. Bogart was one of the first actors to break out of the studio system. He hated the way they treated talent like property, so he fought back. He argued over scripts, swapped lines, and pushed back on casting choices. He even formed his own production company, Santana Productions, just so he could make the movies he wanted his way. In 1949, when Warner Brothers tried to force him into another gangster role, he refused. "I'm tired of playing the guy who shoots first," he said. He held out until they offered something better. On set, he joked with crew, but if he didn't like a director, you'd know, fast. He once told one, "You direct your way, I'll act mine." He wasn't always easy to work with, but he delivered, and that's what kept him safe. Lana Turner covered a crime. In 1958, Turner's life exploded into headlines. Her teenage daughter, Cheryl, had fatally stabbed Johnny Stompanato, Lana's abusive boyfriend. The killing happened in Lana's home, right outside her bedroom. The story dominated every paper in America. But Lana, she played it calm, tearful, but controlled. She told the court Cheryl acted in self-defense. The media framed it as a tragic domestic story. But behind the scenes, things looked messier. Stompanato was a known mob enforcer. He had threatened Lana repeatedly. Friends said she tried to end it, but he wouldn't go. When he showed up during a fight and Cheryl stabbed him, Lana made sure the story stayed on the daughter. The coroner ruled it justifiable homicide. No charges were filed. Lana walked free, and her daughter did too. But not everyone believed it was that simple. The studios jumped into crisis mode. MGM scrambled to manage PR. Lana's career was on the line, but instead of sinking, she bounced back. A year later, she starred in Imitation of Life, which became one of the biggest hits of her career. People whispered, "Did Lana protect Cheryl or take the fall for something else?" No one knows for sure, but she stayed famous. She stayed booked, and she never answered questions that made her uncomfortable. Montgomery Clift ignored doctors. He was supposed to be the next big thing. By the early 1950s, he was Hollywood's sensitive rebel, good looks, raw talent, and a quiet intensity directors loved. Then came 1956. One night, after leaving a party at Elizabeth Taylor's house, Clift crashed his car into a telephone pole. The wreck nearly killed him. His jaw was shattered. His face was never the same. Doctors warned him to take a long break, rest, heal, let the swelling go down. Clift refused. He rushed back to finish filming Raintree County, even though his face didn't match earlier scenes. You can see the difference on screen before and after the crash. From there, things got worse. He relied on painkillers, alcohol, and sheer willpower to keep working. He couldn't turn his head easily. His speech changed, but he didn't slow down. He acted like nothing had changed. Directors adapted. Crews shot him in shadow. Editors worked around his injuries. Everyone tried to help, but only up to a point. The damage was physical, emotional, and visible. He became unpredictable on set. Sometimes brilliant, sometimes lost. Cliff didn't want pity. He didn't want limits. He believed he could act through anything. For a while, he did. But by the early 60s, his career stalled. His body gave out before his talent ever did. Frank Sinatra versus photographers. He didn't like being told what to do, especially not by the press. By the 1950s, he was one of the most famous men in America and one of the most volatile. If a photographer got too close, he lashed out. He broke cameras. He threw punches. He once had his bodyguards beat up a reporter who printed something he didn't like. Lawsuits followed. So did more headlines, but none of it stuck. Sinatra had friends in high places, politicians, lawyers, even mob figures. Rumors swirled about how much protection he really had. He denied everything, of course, and somehow it always blew over. Rumors circulated in 1957. A Look magazine photographer tried to snap a shot at a party. Sinatra grabbed the man by the collar and knocked the camera to the ground. No charges, no apology. Just more swagger, turned his temper into part of the brand. Old Blue Eyes wasn't just a nickname, it was a warning. You didn't cross him unless you were ready for the fallout. Studios didn't drop him. TV shows still booked him. He even won an Oscar for From Here to Eternity, proving that charm and talent still beat bad behavior. Judy Garland misperformances. She had the voice, the face, and the audience in the palm of her hand. But by the 1960s, she couldn't stay on stage long enough to finish a show. Years of studio pressure, pills, and emotional trauma had taken a toll. MGM started her on a certain pill as a teen to keep her awake during filming. Later, they gave her sleeping pills to knock her out. That cycle never stopped. By her 30s, she was struggling. On tour, she showed up late, or not at all. She forgot lyrics, slurred lines, or broke down mid-song. Fans still adored her. Venues still booked her. But every show was a gamble. In 1961, she made a stunning comeback at Carnegie Hall. The album became a classic, but even that high didn't last. Within 2 years, she was back to missed gigs and canceled concerts. Promoters warned venues. Co-stars crossed their fingers. She once told a reporter, "I'm always being Judy Garland. I'll never get to be just me." That pressure crushed her. Studios stopped calling. Television networks pulled back, but the public stayed obsessed. People wanted to save her or watch her fall. Sometimes both. She was still box office gold, but only if she showed up. That didn't always happen. Marlon Brando rewrote scripts on set. By the 1960s, Brando didn't follow scripts, but rewrote them. Literally, directors would hand him a screenplay, and he'd toss half of it out. Sometimes he'd rewrite lines the night before, sometimes on set. He refused rehearsals, changed blocking, delayed shoots. Brando didn't care. He was Marlon Brando. On Mutiny on the Bounty, he drove the entire production over budget and behind schedule. The crew resented him. Co-stars avoided him. But studios couldn't stop him. He was still bankable. He spoke in whispers during scenes, forcing sound teams to scramble. He demanded cue cards off camera when he didn't want to memorize lines. On The Godfather, he wouldn't even learn his dialogue. They taped it to nearby furniture. When a director objected, he shrugged. "I'll give you what I give you." And the thing was, when it worked, it really worked. Brando won Oscars, broke acting norms, and changed Hollywood. He knew it too. That made him harder to control. He refused press junkets, showed up late, insulted interviewers. But producers kept hiring him because he brought something no one else could. He once told an actor, "The only reason I'm in this business is because I haven't found anything else to do." That attitude defined him. Brilliant, unpredictable, and always in charge. Elizabeth Taylor demanded Vatican apology. In 1963, Taylor caused an international scandal and didn't flinch. While filming Cleopatra, she started an affair with co-star Richard Burton. The problem? Both were married to other people. Paparazzi caught them sneaking around in Italy. The world lost it. The Vatican's newspaper branded her with a scathing label implying moral indecency. Harsh words, especially from the Catholic Church. Most stars would have apologized. Taylor didn't. She fired back and demanded a retraction. She never got one, but it didn't stop her. The affair only made her more famous. Crowds followed her in every city. Magazines couldn't get enough. Studios panicked about Cleopatra, which was already over budget and behind schedule. But Taylor wasn't going anywhere. She became the highest-paid actress of her time, earning $1 million for one movie. She showed up late, fought with directors, and demanded rewrites. One producer called the shoot a slow, expensive disaster. Still, Cleopatra premiered. It bombed at first, but Taylor didn't. She married Burton, then divorced, then married him again. It became its own show. Taylor had gone from child star to tabloid queen, and she leaned into it. Warren Beatty refused to be edited. In 1967, Beatty didn't just star in Bonnie and Clyde, he produced it. And he controlled everything. Casting, shooting schedule, final cut. When the studio tried to re-edit the film, he threatened to walk. They backed down. Beatty was only 30, but already had a reputation. He'd rewrite scenes the night before, argue with directors, delay production until he got what he wanted. On Bonnie and Clyde, he clashed with almost everyone. But he also had the vision to see what the studio didn't. The film was revolutionary. Warner Brothers hated the first cut. They thought it was too violent, too weird, and wouldn't sell. Beatty disagreed. He fought for it, hard. He screened it himself, pushed critics to watch. When Time magazine gave it a glowing review, the tide turned. Suddenly, Beatty looked like a genius. The film became a hit. It got 10 Oscar nominations, and Beatty got credit for all of it. From then on, he expected control. He didn't just want roles. He wanted ownership. He took over every set he worked on, often slowing productions down to a crawl. But he didn't care. The final product mattered more. Katharine Hepburn banned interviews. By the 1970s, Hepburn was Hollywood royalty, and she acted like it. She stopped doing interviews, refused press tours, dodged award shows. If someone wanted a quote, she ignored them. If a reporter caught her off guard, she walked away. Studios didn't push her. They knew better. She made her own schedule, picked her roles, controlled her image. No manager, no press agent, no one speaking on her behalf. She once told a journalist, "I welcome opinions, but I don't listen to them." That about summed it up. For decades, she refused to play the game. And it worked. She kept getting roles, even as she aged out of the parts other actresses were begging for. She had a record, 4 Oscars, and she never showed up to accept a single one. People called her difficult. She called it freedom. Directors worked around her. Studios cleared her path. Younger stars respected her or feared her. She wore pants before it was fashionable. Cut her hair short when others were doing pin curls. She did what she wanted, always. By the time the media caught up, it was too late. Hepburn had built a career without ever giving herself away.